Take a deep breath in. Let your shoulders soften and release everything you've been holding. Tonight, you don't need to be anyone. Just be, right here, right now. Let this story guide you through the quiet shadows of your soul, where the self meets the darkness and the light begins within. In a small room of a city that never sleeps, Min sat before the mirror. The warm light reflected a tired face, not from work, but from himself. He no longer remembered the last time he truly felt peace. Each day he wore a different face, a smile for his coworkers, silence for his friends, and a nod for his loneliness. That night, Min accidentally played a podcast about facing the self. A deep, calm voice said, "We cannot heal while running from ourselves. The ego is a dark room. Light comes only when we dare to turn it on." He paused. In that moment, the city's noise faded away. Min felt as if he were sitting face to face with another being, a part of him long forgotten. From that day, Min began journaling, not to narrate, but to converse. Every morning he wrote questions. What am I running from? Why do I fear silence? Who am I when I stop trying to please everyone? At first, the pages were filled with resistance. The ego refused to be unmasked. It found reasons to justify itself, to protect the perfect image Min had tried to maintain. But slowly, as his words became more honest, Min began to see the shadows within, the envy when others were happy, the fear of being forgotten, and the quiet anger of not being understood. Instead of hating them, he simply sat still. Like watching a crying child in the corner, he listened without judgment. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the curtains, Min realized the darkness within had never been the enemy. It was merely the part that had never been loved. He smiled for the first time in months. Not because everything was fine, but because he no longer needed to hide. That night, Min sat before the mirror again. The face was the same, but the eyes were different, calm, no longer needing to prove anything. He gently touched the mirror and whispered, "I see you now, the one who's been here all along, even when I forgot." When we face the darkness within, we do not defeat it. We illuminate it with awareness. The ego fades not because we destroy it, but because we see it, understand it, and no longer let it control us. Each breath is a return. Each silence is a light being kindled within. Story: Letting Go. Lynn sat in her familiar cafe, watching the rain fall outside the window. The coffee before her had gone cold, yet her heart was still burning with memories she couldn't release. She had told herself countless times, "It's over." But just one song, one scent, one old message, and everything returned. She once thought letting go meant forgetting. Now she understood letting go isn't erasing memory, it's learning to see it without pain. One morning, she walked by the lake. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and rustling leaves. Suddenly, Lynn realized nature holds on to nothing. The rain falls, the earth receives, and the sun rises again. She closed her eyes, smiled, and whispered, "I allow myself to be free from what has passed." Letting go is not losing. It's making space for peace to enter. Story: Impermanence. Hui worked in a big company where everything changed every day. Friends came and went, projects followed one another, and he realized the only constant was change. One day, his closest co-worker left without saying goodbye. Hui felt empty. He asked himself, why can't the good things stay? That night, he walked home through a street covered in fallen leaves. A soft breeze lifted them up, then let them fall quietly. He stopped, watching, and a thought passed through him. The leaf does not mourn leaving the branch. It simply returns to the earth. Since then, whenever something ended, a relationship, a day, a feeling, Hui took a deep breath, smiled, and whispered, "Impermanence is the nature of all things." Only when we stop fearing loss do we truly cherish each moment. Story: Healing Old Wounds. Mai once thought time would heal everything, but years had passed and her wound still remained open. Not because others hadn't apologized, but because she hadn't forgiven herself. One day, while cleaning her old room, Mai found a letter she had written to herself at 17. Inside were pure dreams and gentle words, and her tears began to fall. She realized the one she had hurt most was her younger self, the one who once believed and loved life. She lit a small candle, placed her hand over her heart, and said, "I'm sorry. I've forgotten you for too long." That night she cried, not from pain, but from touching the softest part of her soul again. And she understood. Healing isn't erasing the past, it's walking towards it with a gentler heart. Stillness in the city. In the endless stream of traffic, An waited at the red light. The city's sounds filled his ears: horns, voices, the heavy breath of life. He wondered, in a world this loud, is there still a place for silence? Every day was the same rush: alarm clocks, buzzing phones, meetings back to back. Even after work, he clung to his phone like a lifeline, afraid to miss something. One evening, his phone died on the way home. No music, no notifications, only wind and footsteps. Suddenly, An felt light. A fragile silence surrounded him, like the night's gentle arms. He sat on a park bench. Before him, the lake reflected yellow lights, and distant figures passed by. In that moment, he realized stillness is not the absence of sound. It's when the mind no longer chases it. From that day, he spent 10 minutes a day in silence. No music, no phone. At first uncomfortable, then soothing, then necessary. In the city that never sleeps, he found a small space to breathe and to be. When we stop searching for silence outside, we begin to hear it within. Story: Learning to love oneself. Mai often looked in the mirror and saw someone she didn't like staring back. Every flaw became a scar, every mistake a sentence. She told her friends she was fine, but inside was a cold, silent emptiness. One day, she heard a line in a meditation class: Love begins with yourself. If you cannot hold yourself, you will keep seeking validation from others. That line followed her home. That night, she sat in the dark with a single candle. For the first time, she looked directly at herself, not in the mirror, but through the emotions she had buried for so long. She saw a little girl in her memory, crying, trembling, trying to be loved. And she understood. She never had to be perfect to deserve love. She placed her hand over her heart and whispered, "I'm sorry for not listening to you sooner. I'm here now, and I won't abandon you again." Loving oneself isn't indulgence. It's acceptance of both the light and the shadow within. It's standing up after each fall and saying, "I'm still enough." And in the stillness of the night, she realized, no one in this world can truly give us love until we've given it to ourselves. Story: The Moment of Awakening. Nam once thought awakening was distant, for monks in forests or enlightened masters. But one morning, amidst the crowd, he experienced what he later called the moment of awakening. He was rushing to work when an old man dropped his bag in front of him. For some reason, instead of annoyance, he stopped to help. The old man smiled, and in that gaze, Nam felt a strange peace, as if time had paused. As he continued walking, everything seemed to slow down. The horns, the lights, the faces, all vivid, all alive. He felt he was truly living for the first time in years. In that moment, there was no me and others, only presence, pure, silent, overflowing with love. He realized awakening isn't about discovering grand truths. It's seeing the ordinary with new eyes. Since that day, every sip of water, every walk, every sound of rain, he reminded himself, this too is meditation. This is awakening. Awakening isn't a destination, but every moment we are truly present in our own life. Story: The Forgotten House. She returned to the old house after 10 years. The dirt road still carried the same small stones, and the bamboo leaves still whispered in the wind. But the gate was rusted, and the window frames were buried under dust, where she once sat reading as a child. In that house she had dreamed of her future, one she thought she could build through effort and success. She left, chasing it all, but left behind a piece of herself that never moved on. The scent of aged wood and time filled her chest. Everything was there: the table, the photo frame, the notebook. They seemed to be watching her, not with reproach, but with the silence of something long unhealed. On the last page of the notebook, her childlike handwriting read, "Someday I will be happy, no matter where I am." She smiled faintly. 10 years had given her everything: a career, a home, recognition. And yet, happiness remained somewhere on that dusty shelf. In that stillness, she finally understood. This house was never abandoned. She was. She had left herself behind. She closed her eyes and breathed. For the first time in years, she wasn't chasing anything. She just listened. To the wind, to the quiet, to herself. Coming home, she realized, is not returning to the past. It is learning to sit in the present and to know you never truly left. Story: The Dream of the Master. That night, He dreamed of a temple on a mountain. Empty halls, whispering wind, a distant bell. He wandered aimlessly until he saw a master sweeping fallen leaves. "What are you looking for in this emptiness?" the master asked. I don't know," he said softly. "I just feel lost." The master smiled. "Then you are exactly where you need to be." They sat together on the stone steps. The master poured tea and asked, "When you feel lost, where do you think you must go to find the way?" "Toward the light," he answered. "And what if the light is within you?" Silence. The master said, "Each time you suffer, you run away from yourself. But suffering is not your enemy. It is the bell calling you home." When he woke, the scent of tea and the sound of leaves still lingered. Morning was the same, and yet something had changed. He was no longer afraid of silence, because now he knew the master was never outside. He had always been within. Story: The Path to the Mountain. The young man set out to climb the mountain said to hold the light of wisdom. People laughed. "There's nothing up there but mist and rocks." Still, he went, carrying a backpack and a quiet faith that something greater awaited him. The path was steep. Many times he wanted to give up, but then he heard the stream, the birds, and in the fatigue found an unexpected peace. On the third night, through fog, he met an old man tending a fire. "Where are you heading in the cold?" the old man asked. "I am searching for the light of wisdom." The man smiled. "Then why not look at the fire in front of you?" The young man stared into the flame, warm, alive, real. He realized he'd been climbing to find the light, but the light was in every step he took. When he reached the summit, there was only wind and clouds. Yet he smiled. For the first time, the light was within. Story: The Stranger in the Mirror. This morning, she looked into the mirror for a long time. Not to fix her hair or check her appearance, but to see who was staring back. How long had it been since she truly saw herself? Work, screens, and endless plans had blurred her reflection. The woman in the mirror looked tired, but beneath that, there was a quiet sadness, gentle, unblaming. She reached out and touched the glass, cold, real. Tears came, not from pain, but from reunion. It felt like meeting someone who'd been missing for years, herself. She remembered a monk's words: "When you feel like a stranger to yourself, you don't need to find the way home. Just look deeply and smile." She smiled, imperfect, raw, human. The reflection smiled back, soft as forgiveness. And for the first time in years, she felt peace, right there, within her own eyes. Story: When the Rain Stops. He sat in a small cafe, watching rain fall over the city. Each drop drummed against the roof like an unfinished song. The chair across from him was empty now. Only a cold cup of coffee and the silence remained. He had tried to move on, to tell himself it's fine, Time heals. But the rain outside brought everything back. Memories, feelings, words unsaid. Then he realized some pain doesn't need to be erased. It only needs to be seen, understood, and allowed to rest. When the rain stopped, the streets shimmered under the pale evening light. He was still there, but lighter, freer. There was no one to hold on to, nothing to forget. Just a quiet space, clear and open, like the sky after rain. And he smiled, knowing that when we stop resisting the rain, the sun always finds its way back. Story: The Bell at Night. Late at night, a distant temple bell echoed softly. Its sound drifted through the dark, reaching even the quiet corners of his heart. The boy sat on his balcony, phone in hand, scrolling, then stopping. Everything online felt loud, hollow, meaningless. The bell rang again. He closed his eyes. One breath, two. In the stillness, he heard his heartbeat, steady, unhurried. He realized silence wasn't empty. It was a doorway inward. When the last echo faded, he set the phone aside and looked at the stars. His mind was still, like water after wind. Nothing happened, and yet, maybe in that nothing, he truly heard himself for the first time.
Story: The Letter Unsent. Before moving out, she found an old envelope in her drawer, a letter to her ex that was never sent. The paper was yellowed, the handwriting trembling. She read it again and realized it wasn't just written for him, it was written for the girl she used to be, the one who loved fully, hurt deeply, and feared letting go. She smiled softly. If the letter had been sent, she might never have learned to write new chapters of her life. Some words don't need to be said. They complete themselves in silence. She folded the letter and let it burn. The paper turned to ash, but her heart grew light. Because forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's remembering with peace.
Story: The Gatekeeper of Memories. In a dream, he stood before a massive gate. Behind it were countless memories, the ones he wished to forget. A gatekeeper asked, "Do you wish to enter?" "No," he said, "I am afraid." "Then why are you still here?" The man fell silent. The gatekeeper said, "Memories are not chains, if you can look at them in the light." He stepped through. Each memory appeared like an old film reel, sorrow, regret, mistakes. But this time he didn't run, he simply watched and smiled. When he turned back, the gate was gone, the gatekeeper too, because he realized the true gatekeeper was his own courage. Story: Beneath the Bodhi Tree. The woman sat beneath a Bodhi tree in the park where she walked each morning. Today she stayed longer, no reason, just silence. Beside her, a child was drawing. "Auntie, what are you doing?" "I'm learning to sit still." "Why?" because I need to hear what my heart is saying." The child tilted his head and grinned. "I can hear mine too. It says I'm hungry." She laughed, a laughter that felt like sunlight after rain. She realized awakening doesn't always arrive in grand moments. Sometimes it's in the pure laughter of a child, when you stop trying to understand and simply exist. Story: The Boat in the Mist. Morning mist covered the lake. A fisherman rowed a small boat, unable to see the shore. A stranger called out, "Aren't you afraid of losing your way?" The man smiled. "No, I'm not searching for a path. I'm just moving." With each stroke, ripples spread and the mist began to part. A faint glow appeared ahead. "How do you know you're going the right way?" "I don't," the fisherman said, "but I trust the rhythm of my hands." When the sun rose, the shore appeared. The stranger turned, the boat was gone, and the lake was still, like nothing had ever passed. Yet within him, something felt at peace. Story: The Keeper of the Lantern. In a small village, an old man walked each night with a lantern, lighting the paths for those returning late. No one knew his name. They simply called him the Keeper of the Lantern. One night, a curious boy followed him. "Why don't you use the light for yourself?" he asked. The old man smiled. "When you carry light for others, it also shines on you." Years later, the boy, now grown, returned. The old man was gone, yet each night a faint glow still moved along the old path. Perhaps the lantern never truly went out, for when we live with compassion, we become the light itself.
Story: The Dew on the Leaf. Early morning. A young monk swept the temple courtyard and paused. A dewdrop shimmered on a lotus leaf. It reflected the whole sky, small yet infinite. He asked his master, "Why can a single drop hold the sky?" The master smiled, "Because it doesn't try to hold anything. When you rest fully in the present, the universe rests within you." The dew faded under sunlight. The monk smiled softly. The drop hadn't disappeared, it had simply returned to the sky. Story: The Bell and the Wind. The wind chime swayed gently at the temple porch. A young monk asked, "Master, is it the wind that sings or the bell?" The master replied, "Neither. It's the stillness within the listener that creates the song." The monk watched the bell move, the air shimmer, and smiled. When the mind is quiet, all things sing. Story: The Monk's Last Meal. The old monk knew his time had come. He prepared his final meal: a bowl of rice, boiled greens, a cup of clear water. His disciple asked, "Are you not afraid, Master?" He smiled. "I'm only changing houses, not losing myself." He chewed each grain slowly, tasting every moment. The rice is sweet today. Death, too, is just another flavor of life. When the moon rose, he sat still and left as quietly as incense fades into wind. Story: The Moon in the Well. One night, a man told the Zen master, "I saw the moon fall into the well. I want to pull it out." The master said, "Stir the water." He did, and the reflection vanished. "The moon was never in the well," said the master. It was your mind that placed it there." The man wept softly, and ever since, when he looked at the moon, he only smiled, for he knew the most beautiful things cannot be held. Story: When the bell stops. During morning meditation, the bell rang long and clear. Then, silence. A novice whispered, "Master, when the bell stops, what remains?" The Zen master smiled. "Stillness, and that, my child, is also sound." The boy closed his eyes. No bell, no wind, only his breath, only his heart. And in that stillness, he realized, even when sound ends, life keeps singing.
Story: The Light in the Dark Room. He had lived for years in a small room, windows shut tight. Outside, the world glittered, but he'd grown used to darkness, where no one could see his scars. One day, the power went out. He opened the window for air. Light flooded in, harsh at first, then warm. He realized darkness was never the enemy. It was simply the place light hadn't yet reached. From that day on, he opened his window every morning, not to chase away the dark, but to welcome himself, the version that could finally smile in the light. Story: The Path Without Footprints. A traveler crossed the mountain and asked a Zen monk sweeping leaves, "Master, which way leads to enlightenment?" The monk smiled and swept once more. "The path isn't ahead or behind. It appears when you stop searching." He froze. Wind passed, leaves scattered, the ground smooth, no footprints. He bowed. From then on, he still walked, but no longer sought. Story: The Day No One Left to Forgive. She used to carry so much anger, words, wounds, memories that never faded. One day during meditation, she began to cry, not for anyone else, but because she realized the one she hadn't forgiven was herself. She placed her hand on her chest and whispered, "I'm sorry for making you be strong for too long." After that, she stopped searching for who to blame, because when no one is left to forgive, the heart becomes clear like water. Story: The Keeper of the Lamp. In a small village, an old man lit a lamp by the bridge every night. Someone once asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" He smiled. "No, I just want travelers to find their way in the dark." Years later, the man passed away. But each night, villagers still lit the lamp. No one told them to. That small light became a memory shared by all, reminding them that sometimes to live is to shine quietly for others. Story: When I Disappears. A disciple asked, "Master, when will I attain enlightenment?" The master looked at him and replied, "Who are you?" Silence. The question fell like a pebble into a deep well. He searched through memories, titles, and stories, but no self could be found. And suddenly, thought stopped. No seeker, no seeking, only breath
and a clear stillness smiling back. The master whispered, "Enlightenment isn't something you gain. It's what remains when no one is left to gain it."
Story: The Midnight Cafe. The city at night. Faint street lights, soft rain, and at the end of a quiet street, a small cafe open till dawn. People came there not for coffee, but for silence. A young woman sat by the window, stirring her cold cup. She worked all day, smiled all day, yet at night felt empty. Everything was fine, except her. The old man behind the counter polished a glass. Seeing her gaze lost in the rain, he asked, "What are you looking for tonight?" She paused. "I don't know. Maybe myself?" He smiled, setting a cup of warm water before her. Coffee is for the mind. Warm water is for the heart. When the heart is warm, the night no longer feels lonely. Steam rose gently. For a brief second, her chest softened. After months of numbness, she felt herself again, breathing, living, quietly beginning anew. Outside, the rain kept falling, but now it sounded like a lullaby. She smiled and drank slowly, savoring the warmth. Story: The Traveler and the River. The traveler had walked for days. Tired and dusty, he reached a river, clear, alive, flowing beneath the pale sky. He washed his face, drank, felt reborn. Then he asked the river, "Where are you going? You never stop." The river whispered through the breeze, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm simply flowing." He froze. All his life, he'd been trying to go, from dream to dream, from place to place, but he'd never truly flowed. He watched the water move around rocks without resistance, still clear, still itself. And he realized life isn't about moving faster. It's about learning to move without losing yourself. When the sun set, he smiled. He no longer knew where he was heading, but the river flowed quietly within him now. Story: The Furnace and the Flame. The old potter had a young apprentice. The boy was impatient. He wanted perfect vases, fast. But every time he fired them, they cracked. One day the master said, "Come, I'll show you the secret of fire." He opened the furnace. Flames roared. Clay isn't shaped by skill, but by its willingness to face fire. Only then does it become whole. The boy stood silent. He saw that life was the same. It's not pain that breaks us, but our resistance to it. From that day, he no longer feared the fire. He understood within each of us burns a quiet furnace. And when we stop fighting it, the flame becomes light. Story: The Last Station Keeper. At the edge of the city stood an old, forgotten train station. No train stopped there anymore. Only an old keeper remained. Every morning he swept the platform. Every night he lit the signal lamp. One day a young man passed by and asked, "Why do you keep doing this when no trains ever come?" The keeper smiled softly. "Some things we do not for the world to see, but to keep our own heart alight." The boy said nothing. The small oil lamp in the man's hand burned quietly, lighting no one's path, but still keeping the night gentle. He stood there for a long time, realizing that sometimes people hold the light just to remind the world the light still exists. That night back home, he turned on his desk lamp and began to write again. And far away, the station's lamp flickered on, like the steady heartbeat of the world. Story: The Forest That Listens. She left the city carrying the quiet wounds of youth, unfinished loves, misunderstood words, and the noise inside her mind. She entered the forest. At first it frightened her, the rustle of leaves, the cold air, the vast silence. But soon she realized the forest wasn't silent. It was listening. Every sound, the wind, the birds, the stream, seemed to answer something within her. "I'm tired," she whispered. The trees replied with a soft breeze. By the seventh day, she sat under a great tree, eyes closed. No stories, no pain, just breath. And in that breath, she felt herself dissolve into the forest, becoming part of the same rhythm. She smiled. No one needed to listen anymore, because she finally heard herself in the silence of the forest that listens. Story: The Dawn Behind Closed Eyes. He meditated through the night. Outside, dawn had not yet come. Inside, his thoughts still churned like waves. He longed for light. The more he sought, the darker it felt. Finally, he gave up. No seeking, no asking, just sitting. In that surrender, something gentle opened. A light not from the world, but from within the quiet behind closed eyes. When he finally opened them, the sky was pale with dawn. Yet what he saw shining was not outside, but within. From that day on, he knew awakening isn't seeing the world, it's seeing yourself, even with closed eyes. 33 stories, 33 journeys through loneliness, loss, anger, and the quiet rediscovery of peace within. There was never a Buddha outside us, only ordinary moments, a slower morning, a softer gaze, a breath deep enough to hear our own heart. We began this path full of questions. Who am I? What is the meaning of my life? How do I let go of the pain? And one by one, the questions dissolved. Not because we found the answers, but because we learned to live without needing them. Peace is not at the destination. It's in every step we take. Awakening isn't an escape from the world. It's seeing the world right here in this breath. Perhaps after all, we only need to know one simple thing: that we have lived. Truly, once. We have loved. We have fallen. We have risen. And through every crack in our heart, light has found its way in. If you are hearing this now, pause for a moment. Close your eyes. Breathe. That breath is the 34th story, the story of you.